Hello, welcome to the amazing world of writing essays. Okay, the same as the B2 exam. In the C1, you have two parts in the writing. The first one being an essay. Okay, and it's pretty much the same. It's quite similar. It doesn't vary much from the style of the B2 essay. We have an introduction. You can listen to this. Okay, and think about this scheme. Remember, this appears in an exam that you will do shortly. Scheme is like a program, no? Hay un programa de intercambio that can be called scheme. It's some plans that have been carried out in order to solve a situation. So that's a scheme. Okay, so you have some ideas here. You can read this, take some notes, and we'll do this when we do this in class. Okay, now this is a plan for an essay. What's the problem with the planning? Okay, can you read it and think about what seems to be wrong here? Okay, so plan B doesn't doesn't help much. This is like what you have to do, or giving opinions already, giving information. If these things are done, people will move back. That's not the idea. Okay, the planning. Okay, remember in the introduction you introduce the topic. Let's see if I have it. Okay, you read the task and then you prepare a plan. So in the introduction you have some general statement introducing the topic. This is a bit different in the C1. Normally you introduce the problem. So if the task is that people are moving to the suburbs, outside, like neighborhoods outside the city center, zonas residenciales, why that is a big problem? Because now the city center is becoming deserted, or like run down areas, etc. So you introduce the problem. Normally in the C1 you will have some kind of problem, and rather than giving just your opinion, you have a problem, and normally it says what governments can do. Okay, and you have some ideas, some measures that governments could take, and what you have to do is discuss these two measures. There are three measures, but you just choose two to discuss. You discuss them, and then you decide in the conclusion which measure you think will be most effective. That is more or less the style of the essay in the C1. Okay, so for example, solution. This is, you introduce the solution, and then you can introduce just positive points or positive, negative. It makes sense, okay, to plan it first and know which solution you're going to choose, okay, so that you give more positive ideas or more positive points for the one that you're going to choose. Okay, and I normally suggest writing that 1 second. Okay, the one that you're going to choose should appear in the third paragraph, second, so that it's easier to link the ideas mentioned here with your conclusion, where you say, therefore I believe that the second option is likely to be more effective, and why, and that will round up your ideas in a clearer way. But anyway, it's a free country, but that's my advice. So basically that's it. It says write a plan for the essay in activity 2. That's not very clear. I mean, you have to write an essay on promoting greater contact between neighbors. That's the solution, that's the situation, and you have to give ideas, but I don't think you need to worry about that. Okay, you will always have a task which you can read, and you will have 3 methods, 3 suggestions. You have to choose 2 of these. Okay, so you will have 4 paragraphs. Introduction, 1 paragraph for one of these, another paragraph for one of these, and then the conclusion. Now, an advantage, I don't know if it's an advantage, is that in the C1 you have some ideas which you can use. If you use them, you have it here. If you use them, okay, you can use those ideas, but you have to rephrase what it says, you have to make them more formal, etc. Sometimes I think it's easier to just forget about that, because sometimes you're like biased. Bias is that something affects your judgment. So I normally ignore the ideas, but anyway, if you have no ideas, you can always copy one of those ideas, or all of them, or whatever you want. but I don't normally pay attention to those ideas. Important, you will have more words. It's not very clear. You have between 220 and 260 words that you can write. And instead of 5 paragraphs, as you had in the B2, you have 4 paragraphs. So it's easier to justify your points, give, as we saw in the planning, positive, negative points with more explanations. And the introduction should also be a bit longer, not just a general statement, but introduce the problem, things that may have happened, which may have led to the current situation, and then what governments could do about it, normally, depending on the task. But here, for example, you see, it says methods governments could use to discourage. So what can governments do about it? And then you discuss the 2 possibilities that you've decided to discuss, the 2 methods, or 2 ways in which governments could improve the situation, reduce the number of cars in the city center. Okay. Now, more things that I said. You can have a balanced approach, which means positive, negative aspects. What you can do is, for the one that you're not going to choose, something positive but something negative, and then for the one that you're going to choose, positive and positive, like 2 supporting points for that method. And then you conclude by saying that that should probably help. Okay. Some vocabulary. Levies is like fees, tasas. Parking levies is like a tax, an impuesto, something. Okay. And I think pretty much that's it. Okay. Remember what I've just said. Don't copy the sentences. If you want to use those ideas given, you can use them, but you have to rewrite them. And pretty much that's it. A bit of revision. Okay, you have it here. Prepare a plan. General statement introducing the topic or the problem there is, a rhetorical question normally. So what can governments do about it? Normally it will be something that governments, some measures. What measures should governments take, or how far is it? Or how far, I would say here it's normally what the governments should do. And in the conclusion, answer the question. If it says choose the best one, no, it says, in this sentence, it says explain which method you think will be the most important, which method you think is more important for governments to consider. So the task is king. So you have to make sure that you answer this question according to the task. This is things that I've always told you. Okay, if you come up with vocabulary that you can use, write it down when you're applying it. Then you write the essay, making sure you include all the ideas in the plan, and then proofread. Okay, revise, make sure the ideas are correct, spelling mistakes, grammar mistakes. If you do it on the computer, there are no problems with this, you can change it. And now revision. Semi-formal, the same as the B2, so no contractions, avoid the use of all these words, try to use impersonal sentences. Okay, it's obvious, it's clear, it's necessary. There's a need for, no, you don't have that one. There's a need. Passive, reported passive, it is believed that reducing the cars in the city center will benefit not only, okay, these 3 sentences, use only one of them because they mean more or less the same and they're a bit heavy. So if you use one several times or use all 3, it's a bit difficult to read. Okay, choice of language. Those words which are similar to Spanish come from Latin. So these are more formal, present, appropriate, consider. Okay, so all these words are more formal. You can use some of these words when in doubt. Always choose the more formal one for essays. And a range of a range of linking devices. Don't go crazy using lots of linking devices, but there are some that you can use to add information. Remember, full stop, the word, a comma. The same with nevertheless, however, which is for contrast. So these are for contrast. And these are to justify. For instance, giving an example, therefore, that's why. So the ones that are more formal, therefore, nevertheless, furthermore, moreover, these are more formal. Okay, so you can try to use those. And to finish, we're going to go to page 168, so you can see some examples. Okay, so you have a title, promoting locally produced goods. So state the problem at the beginning of the essay. Okay, give information about what the problem is. Don't give your opinion, remember, or a conclusion. that should be at the very end after you've led the way to that conclusion. Okay, the first of these, no, two approaches. I don't really like this, but anyway, if it is here, you can use it. You can say, so what can governments do in order to improve the situation? Something like that. A rhetorical question. But anyway. So you have the first of these, a second tactic, a second method, an alternative way. You can use these expressions to introduce the first and the second point. And then having a balanced approach, this is what I told you about. Positive includes something negative. You can use rhetorical questions. I use them in the introduction, but anyway, you may want to use one here. Say formal, objectively, so in personal sentences, these ideas I've told you, and make sure you give your opinion at the end. Okay, you can have a look at this one. Notice that it is justified more than it was in the B2, and the introduction is also longer than the B2. Okay, like you have like 4 paragraphs, around 60 words each, so it's quite even, no? Equilibrado, quite balanced. So you can have a read and try to write an amazing essay. Okay, thank you very much. Bye.